You know, usually when we think about a trap or a cage, we picture something inherently unpleasant.
Right, like something you'd actively want to escape from.
Exactly. We imagine cold iron bars, a distinct lack of freedom, a feeling of absolute misery. It feels binary. You are either free and happy or you are, trapped and miserable.
Yeah, we prefer our boundaries to be visible. I mean, it makes the world much easier to navigate when the things restricting us are tangible and obvious.
But then you encounter a piece of philosophy that completely inverts that idea. And suddenly you have to look around your perfectly comfortable living room and ask yourself if you're actually just sitting in a beautifully decorated, heavily padded cell.
It's a profoundly unsettling thought experiment.
It really is. What if the very things that bring us joy, like finding the love of your life, building a family, the entire structure of human civilization, are actually symptoms of a deeply confined imagination?
It forces you to examine the water you are currently swimming in, to question the very baseline of your reality.
And that is our mission for today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are exploring the invisible boundaries of our own perception and questioning whether the things you and I consider entirely normal are actually just a comfortable cage.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Massive. And to guide us, we are unpacking a single, highly provocative philosophical essay titled The Tragedy of Habitual Acceptance. It was written by Shu Feng in February of 2025, and we're working from a translation edited by Kinyu.
It's a fairly compact piece of writing, actually, but the implications are massive.
Oh, for sure.
The author doesn't just offer abstract theories. The argument builds from these isolated hypothetical thought experiments about individuals, and then it scales all the way up to a sweeping critique of the entire human condition.
So let's jump into those foundational thought experiments because they establish what we could call the geography of ignorance.
I like that phrasing.
Right. So the essay asks us to picture a person who was born inside a prison. This individual spends their entire life within those specific walls, completely insulated from the outside world.
And by the time this person reaches the age of 50, the argument goes, they would view this prison environment as entirely natural.
Like, just the way things are.
Exactly. The walls, the routine, the confinement, it is all unquestionable to them. To them, life is simply meant to be this way because the human brain is this incredible adaptation machine. It normalizes its surroundings just to survive.
Okay, let's unpack this because I have a bit of a bone to pick with Sui Feng right out of the gate here.
Oh.
Yeah. The essay adds this crucial detail, noting that if this prisoner were fortunate enough to find love and a partner inside those walls, they would feel genuine happiness.
Right. They wouldn't just be surviving, they'd be fulfilled.
Exactly. In their mind, they would believe they have experienced the absolute full essence and meaning of life. But if they feel that deep, genuine happiness, why is their ignorance a problem?
That's the big question.
I mean, we all know the phrase, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know you're trapped and you're living a happy, loving life, why frame this as a tragedy?
What's fascinating here is that the author isn't denying the reality of their happiness at all.
Okay.
The affection the prisoner feels is real. The joy is not hollow or fake. The tragedy being highlighted is a lack of totality.
A lack of totality.
Yeah, their natural and inevitable reality is ultimately a localized illusion.
An illusion built entirely by their zip code.
Right. The tragedy is one of limitation. They have accepted a tiny, tiny fragment of reality as the absolute whole.
Ah, I see.
Imagine reading only the first paragraph of an epic novel and genuinely believing you have experienced the entire story.
That would be a tragedy, yeah.
And the human brain actually does this for a very practical reason, cognitive load. We cannot constantly process every single variable of our existence, so we habituate.
We just tune things out.
Exactly. We take our immediate environment, turn it into a predictable baseline, and just stop questioning it. That saves mental energy, but it also creates a massive blind spot where we mistake our local adaptation for universal truth.
Which explains how this expands beyond just physical walls like a prison. Because the essay also brings up a person born on a small island in the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, the islander metaphor.
Right. This island is home to thousands of people living in carefree joy, but they are entirely unaware that vast continents exist across the sea. They just look at the water and assume it goes on forever.
And we can push that even further into, intangible boundaries.
Yeah,
Like climate.
right. The essay talks about that too.
Yeah, consider someone born in a small country that only ever experiences a dry season and a rainy season. Having ever traveled, they are completely ignorant of the climates thousands of miles away.
So to them, snow is basically magic.
To this person, the concept of snow or a freezing winter isn't just a different weather pattern, it's a myth. They assume the two-season world is the default state of existence for the entire planet.
They habituate to their limits so thoroughly that the limits become completely invisible. And that makes perfect sense when we're talking about a hypothetical guy in a prison or an isolated islander. Like, it's easy for us and for you listening at home to look at them from the outside and feel a sense of pity.
Sure, we have the benefit of a wider perspective.
But the essay doesn't let us stay in that comfortable, superior position, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It abruptly pulls the camera back to encompass all of humanity.
It's quite the pivot.
It is. If we can clearly spot the cognitive blind spots of the islander or the prisoner, we have to apply that exact same lens to ourselves. The focus shifts to a person born on Earth. Suddenly, we are the ones under the microscope.
We are the islanders.
We are. The text points out how an Earth dweller naturally grows completely accustomed to the daily rising and setting of the sun. But then it pivots to the things we accept about human interaction.
The societal stuff.
Right. We accept that the animal kingdom is governed by the law of the jungle, and we seamlessly carry that over to believe that human society must also be driven by conflict, competition, and the constant struggle for energy.
Yeah, we look at nations waging wars over land and resources and just shrug. We're like, well, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
And we look up at a night sky filled with countless planets, and instead of seeing possibility, we just habitually accept that they are impossibly distant and forever out of reach.
We treat the stars like decorative wallpaper for our global prison.
That is a great way to put it.
We instinctively believe that Earth is humanity's only possible home, and that our deeply conflicted, competitive way of living is just the natural order of existence.
It's like thinking the only way to play a video game is to stay in the brutal, hyper-competitive tutorial level just because you never realized there was a peaceful, open-world map waiting to be unlocked.
That's a perfect analogy.
Like you're endlessly fighting for minor resources in this tiny starting zone, totally convinced that this is all the game has to offer because it's all you've ever experienced.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to the underlying mechanics of habituation, Xu Feng is deliberately conflating natural physics with human constructs to expose our massive blind spot.
Tell me more about that.
Think about the rising and setting of the sun. That is a physical, undeniable law of celestial mechanics. You cannot change it. But human society, being driven by the law of the jungle, nations waging wars over land.
Those aren't gravity.
No, those are choices. Those are sociological constructs.
But by placing them side by side, the author shows how we've blended them together in our minds. We look at war, greed, and the struggle for resources and say, well, that's just human nature. That's just how the world works.
Right.
Just like the prisoner says, walls are just how the world works.
We have naturalized our own suffering. And if you look at modern life, you see this mechanism everywhere.
Oh, absolutely everywhere.
Think about how we consume the daily news. You can scroll past a headline about a devastating conflict over resources, and your very next swipe is a video of someone baking a cake.
Yeah. The cognitive dissonance is wild.
Well, we have normalized global tragedy to the point where it is just background noise. We accept it as a permanent fixture of our environment, just like the islander accepts the ocean.
We've built the walls of our own global cage, locked the door from the inside, and then convinced ourselves those walls are mountains that cannot possibly be moved.
It's a very heavy realization.
The habitual acceptance is deeply entrenched, but the deep dive can't end there, because what happens when something pierces that bubble? The essay spends a significant amount of time exploring the catalyst of awareness, like what happens when hidden worlds are finally revealed.
The author asks us to imagine the rupture of these illusions. What happens if the person born in the prison suddenly learns of the vast, beautiful world beyond the walls?
They'd probably lose their minds for a minute.
Right. What if the islander discovers that those endless oceans actually lead to entirely different continents? Or if the person in the small, two-season nation realizes that humanity could actually live in global unity, experiencing a multitude of climates and cultures?
And for us, for the Earth Dweller, the text introduces a very specific, almost cosmic rupture. It asks, what if the Earth Dweller came to know about the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world that exists beyond this planet?
That is the ultimate catalyst.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I need you to break this down for me. When I first read that section of the source material, it really threw me for a loop.
Yeah, it's a sudden shift in tone.
Suddenly we have the Thousand-Year World and the Elysium World. What exactly are we talking about here? Are these meant to be literal, physical planets out there in the galaxy?
A valid question.
Are they futuristic epochs of human evolution, or are they like spiritual states of being? Because it suddenly sounds almost like science fiction.
It is a vital question. In the context of Xiufeng's broader philosophy, these aren't necessarily physical planets with coordinates you could plug into a spaceship. They represent advanced realms of existence, or higher planes of consciousness. A 1,000-year world, or a 10,000-year world, refers to a state of being where the scale of time and life is vastly expanded compared to our brief, human lifespans.
So a much broader perspective.
Yes. And the Elysium world represents a pinnacle of harmony, freedom, and joy. It is completely untethered from the brutal law of the jungle that dictates earthly life.
So they function as a complete paradigm shatterer. By introducing a reality where life operates on a scale of 10,000 years, it makes our frantic 80-year struggle for immediate resources look incredibly petty.
Exactly. Their function in the narrative is identical to the concept of continents for the isolated islander.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
They serve as the ultimate revelation that our current reality is not the entirety of existence. Once the Earth dweller conceptualizes these realms that operate on entirely different scales of time and perfect happiness, their thoughts can no longer be confined to the limits of their earthly upbringing.
The bubble bursts. Once you know the door to the perfectly decorated room isn't locked, or that there's a sprawling forest outside it, you can't just go back to sitting quietly on the couch.
You really can't. The inevitable result, according to the text, is a profound urge to break free. Or at the very least, it brings the philosophy crashing right back down to our everyday reality. We transition from contemplating the Elysium world back to, the mundane details of a Tuesday morning.
To drive this home, the author outlines what we could call the standard life script.
The pipeline.
Right. It describes a person who is born, goes to school, finds a job, gets married, has children, starts a family, watches their grandchildren grow, and then, just like their ancestors before them, they die, they are placed in a coffin, and they are buried beneath the earth.
Just laying it all out there.
Yeah, and Xiufeng ends the entire piece with a rhetorical question. Is this not a tragedy?
It is a jarring, highly provocative conclusion.
So what does this all mean? Because I have to push back strongly here.
I thought you might.
I'm thinking of the listener right now who might be commuting to a job they take pride in, or picking up their kids from school. Calling that sequence a tragedy feels incredibly harsh.
It can definitely feel that way.
It feels provocative just for the sake of being provocative. So many people find deep, profound purpose and comfort in that exact cycle. Raising a family, aging gracefully, leaving a legacy of love for your grandkids, working hard to build something. How is a normal, peaceful life a tragedy?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact tension the author wants you to feel. But if we look closely at the underlying philosophy, the implication is that the tragedy isn't inherently in the actions themselves.
Okay, so it's not the family or the job.
Right. The act of learning in a school, the act of loving a family, or the act of contributing through a job, those are not the tragedy.
Then what makes that script tragic?
The tragedy lies in doing it automatically, is the unquestioning adherence to the script. Notice the specific phrasing in the text, doing it like their ancestors before them. The tragedy is living life entirely on autopilot. It is moving from the school to the job to the marriage simply because that is the geography you were born into, without ever questioning if there is a vaster world of possibility out there for you.
I hear you, but even on autopilot, maintaining that script takes immense conscious effort. I think a lot of people would argue that the routine you're describing is actually the foundation that keeps society from collapsing.
That's a fair point.
Like if the person driving the bus or the surgeon performing a bypass is constantly trying to mentally break out to an Elysium world who is keeping the lights on, isn't some level of habitual acceptance necessary just to function?
That is a completely valid counterpoint.
Yeah.
Society absolutely relies on operational habituation to function. We need people to show up to work and maintain the infrastructure.
Right.
However, the author is drawing a line between operational autopilot and existential autopilot.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
It is one thing to habituate to your morning commute so you can safely drive your car, without, constantly overthinking how the pedals work. It's an entirely different thing to habituate to the limitations of your own soul.
So it's about whether you chose the script or the script chose you.
Yes, exactly. If you choose a traditional life out of vast awareness, if you recognize the infinite possibilities of the universe and actively decide that raising a family in a quiet town is your true calling, that is a life of intention.
That makes total sense.
But if you walk that exact same path simply because you cannot imagine any other way of existing, then you are the islander. You are the prisoner.
Wow.
The essay suggests that a life lived purely on unquestioned habit is a life lived inside a coffin long before the physical body is ever placed in one.
A coffin of habit. That is a haunting way to put it. You're dead to the vastness of possibility long before you're actually buried beneath the earth.
It demands that we wake up. It challenges us to look at the law of the jungle at work in our economic systems, or the school marriage death pipeline in our personal lives, and stop saying, well, that's just life.
Because the moment you declare something just life, you lock the cell door.
Precisely. You lock yourself in.
It really has been quite a conceptual journey today. We started with the incredibly localized metaphor of the 50-year-old in a prison cell who thinks the walls are the literal edge of the universe.
Right.
And we looked at how the brain uses cognitive load reduction to normalize whatever environment we are placed in.
We then expanded that mechanism to encompass the entire globe, realizing that humanity's acceptance of endless conflict, resource wars, and social competition is our own version of those prison walls.
We've completely mistaken our societal constructs for undeniable laws of physics.
We really have.
And then we explored the necessity of a catalyst, the paradigm-shattering revelation of the 1,000-year and Elysium worlds to break those illusions.
The things that pop the bubble.
Exactly. And finally, we brought it right to our own doorsteps, examining how the standard school-to-coffin pipeline might be the ultimate tragedy if we simply sleepwalk through it without ever questioning our default settings.
That's a lot to process.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a new thought to mull over. Something that builds on the text, but takes it a step further.
The concepts certainly leave us with a lot of heavy lifting to do on our own time, so I'm curious what you have in mind.
Think about this. If discovering a new, vaster world like the Elysium world is what makes us realize our current life is a prison, doesn't the pursuit of absolute freedom just risk creating an endless treadmill of dissatisfaction?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Right. Let's say we do break free. Let's say humanity evolves and actually reaches the Elysium world, achieving that perfect harmony. Won't we eventually, over generations, just become habituated to that reality?
A fascinating paradox.
Doesn't human nature dictate that our shiny new paradise will eventually turn into just another baseline? And if so, does that mean every utopia is destined to become a new prison of habitual acceptance, requiring yet another hidden world to break us out again?
That's a slightly terrifying thought.
Are we always going to build a new cage out of our new freedoms?
It begs the question of whether true freedom is a destination we can arrive at, or simply the perpetual act of breaking the current mold.
Something to think about the next time you look up at the night sky or, just as you go through your morning commute. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those default settings, challenge the things you habitually accept, and never stop exploring the vastness beyond your own islands. We'll see you next time.